My parents had a brick ranch built in mid-Michigan in 1956. It became one of several houses that each had 1 acre of land. The ground was hardened clay, not good for growing crops, yet we managed to grow a garden, and consequently did a lot of digging. We never found Native American artifacts or anything like that, but still, with the paranormal events that happened, we wondered, years later, if that home was built on an ancient burial ground or something. My parents had nice floor tile installed in the basement, ceiling tile, hung curtains down there, and painted the cement block walls, and we made one room into a family room. Still, even as a small child, I had an odd feeling of being watched when I was down there. When I go down there to watch TV, I'd constantly be looking over my shoulder. When I ran up the stairs, I couldn't run fast enough. I was filled with extreme terror, like something was right behind me and ready to grab me. It was a 3-bedroom home, so on the main floor, my parents had 1 bedroom, my brother had the next, and we 3 girls had bunk beds, and all shared the 3rd bedroom. When my brother graduated and moved out, my older sister moved into the room he had occupied. 5 years later, she graduated and moved out, and I got that bedroom. I was 13 years old then, and was very excited to finally have my own space. I should add that the house had heavily plastered walls that were very soundproofed. There was a long hallway with my parents' bedroom, and then the bathroom, and then my room, then the next bedroom after that. My mother was a strict disciplinarian who we dared not cross. When she said it was time for bed, we obeyed. The light switch was near the door, at the foot of my bed, and it had to be turned off and remain that way throughout the night. It was during this time of moving into this bedroom that something terrifying started to happen to me. It was so traumatic that I do not know if it happened for days, or weeks, or months. I would lay there in the dark, and before even becoming drowsy, I would start to hear exaggerated, heavy, monstrous breathing within inches of my face. I could not feel the breath, but it was so loud that I was surprised I didn't. I couldn't even breathe that loud now if I were to try to show you how it sounded. It was horrific. I didn't dare to turn on the light, because this would mean I'd have to crawl to the foot of my bed to reach the light switch, and I was terrified of bumping into the thing. I would lay there and put the covers over my head, and I breathed as shallow as possible. I hoped in my own way that I'd become invisible to the thing, whatever it was, or that it would think I was dead and would leave. I felt totally helpless, and that was all I could do. Incredibly, laying there like that, I eventually would fall asleep. I'd wake up in the morning and feel thankful to have survived the night. I never even thought of telling anyone about what was happening nightly to me. This must be what post-traumatic stress does to a person. I would also see a large circle of light, at times, on the hardwood floor. It was about as large as a dinner plate, and there was no explanation for it, as the rest of the room was pitch black. There were heavily lined drapes in my bedroom, and no light ever came in through the window when the drapes were closed. My parents sold the home a year later. 10 years later, when I was 23 years old and my sister was 28, I ended up asking her, "Remember how you had that middle bedroom before me? Did anything strange ever happen to you in that bedroom?" My sister had always been a serious person, not the type to joke around. Her eyes got very wide. She said, "Things happen to you, too?" She told me that she saw a circle of light on the floor at times, and at other times she would feel the weight of something pushing down the mattress near her feet, as if something were sitting down. She did not hear the over-exaggerated breathing, though, and she, too, had never thought of telling anyone about what was happening during that time. I also asked her if she felt a creepy feeling in the basement. She said yes, that she always felt like she was being watched, and couldn't go up the stairs fast enough either. I've since asked my brother if he ever had any odd experiences when he first occupied the room, and he said no. I also stopped by the home many years later and asked the people who bought it from us if they had ever experienced anything creepy in the basement or that bedroom, and they said no. I don't understand why this happened to my sister, and also to me, but I will tell you that I'm 63 years old now, and in every place I have lived as an adult, I have had to have my bedroom door open and the hall light on. I have never been able to sleep in a dark room again. In 2014, I was deployed to the Middle East. I was assigned to tower duty for 12-hour shifts in a 2-man team, and rarely did anything interesting ever happen. Mostly, we would be staring at a vast expanse of sand. One night, my team leader and I were talking and smoking a cigarette when he spied movement at the base of the tower. He asked me if I saw it as well, and I could see movement but couldn't tell what it was. We shined the flashlight at it, thinking it was a squad leader playing a prank on us. What we saw instead was what I can only describe as being either a small lion or a massive dog. It was covered in long black fur and was circling the base of the tower. It wasn't walking forward though, it was sidestepping on all fours, like it was scuttling around us, like a crab would walk. We were both startled by it, but we didn't feel particularly threatened. The tower was about 40 feet tall, with 2 flights of stairs and a ladder, followed by a heavy trapdoor, and the actual room was an enclosed metal box with windows all around. We also each had a rifle and a pistol, plus a light machine gun, and plenty of rounds for all of them. We put the lock on the trapdoor just to be safe, though. We never got a great look at it because it was pitch black outside, and we only had a flashlight to look down there. After about 10 minutes, it wandered away into the distance. I don't think it was a lion, or a dog, though. For one, there was a 12-foot tall by 3-foot thick concrete wall surrounding the entire installation, with only one entrance and exit. There isn't enough food or water to support a lion, and they weren't native to this particular area. I also doubt it was a dog, because the entrance to the installation was controlled by the host country, and Middle Easterners seemed to hate dogs for some reason. It wasn't unheard of for them to shoot strays roaming around the gate, and they would have never allowed one to just walk right by them to get in, and you couldn't miss one this big. The perimeter of the wall was checked daily to maintain security, so it couldn't have dug in. The only way for it to get in would have been over the wall. Whenever I asked the locals about it and gave them the description, they would immediately change topics and refuse to talk about it. I spent time in the woods at home, and very aware of all the known big cat species, and none of them have that shaggy long black fur. I haven't seen anything like it before or since, and hope to never run into it again. In case you're wondering, we never shot at it because we have always been told not to bother the wildlife. We felt totally safe in the locked tower. We had a radio, and we didn't want to have to explain why we discharged our weapons on an unknown target. This is an update, submitted after the original story was submitted. Saw my team leader and squad leader at a wedding about a month ago. We got to talking about it. My team leader and I have yet to see anything else like this again. Our squad leader said that he's been seeing something about like that somewhere in the background his whole life. He didn't say anything else about it. And between the wedding and the open bar, no one seemed to want to press him for more details. My story may not be as exciting as the stories where people get possessed, or the spirit does something to prove it's real, but it is 100% true. When I was younger, my mother told me about her own Ouija board experience, and I became extremely fascinated by the board, despite the fact that she insisted it wasn't something to play around with. Every time I saw one at the store, I would always ask for it, but my mom always said no. When I was a teenager, I found out that you could make your own, so I did. I made my own Ouija board, completely out of cardboard, but I didn't play it right away, because I was really nervous since they always say not to play alone, and none of my friends were brave enough to play it with me. Eventually, my excitement and curiosity got the best of me, though, and I took out the board and began to play by myself. After all, it's just a game, right? I asked basic questions. Is anybody there? Are there any spirits nearby? Are there any spirits that would like to speak? Initially, I didn't get any response, but I kept trying. After a few more times, just when I was about to give up, the planchette slowly began to move towards yes. I really hadn't expected it to work. So at this point, I freaked out and did something you were never supposed to do. I took my hand off the planchette completely without saying goodbye. Once I had time to breathe and calm down a bit, I realized what I had done and tried to play again so I could say goodbye. I put the planchette back on the board and began asking if anyone was there again. But this time, I got no responses at all. I tried for a little while longer before I gave up and put the board aside. I told myself that I must have been the one moving it and went about my day. I never picked up the board again. But after my initial experience, strange things started to happen around the apartment that my mother and I shared. Things would disappear from where they had been placed. Mirrors and pictures would fall off the walls for no reason. We would hear sounds like things falling, doors opening and closing, our names being called. My mother told me that one night when I wasn't home, she woke up from a dreamless sleep to the feeling of someone standing right next to her side of the bed and looking down at her. She said she didn't see whatever it was, but it gave her a horrible feeling of evil. She turned on her favorite Christian station and prayed to God until the presence finally went away and she could go back to sleep. She also told me that on more than one occasion she would wake up to someone calling out, "Mom!" from my room. Sometimes, when I wasn't there, she was always too frightened to go see what it was. I never had anything that severe happen to me, but then my mom was always more sensitive to the spirit world, possibly as a result of living in many haunted houses in her life. We both saw shadows at night when we were in the bathroom, though, and there was a clear view of the entrances to our bedrooms from the toilet. I'd see them leaving and entering my room mostly, sometimes hers. I did wake up early one morning, though, to my stereo volume going up by itself, until it was so loud my ears were hurting. I thought I must have laid on the remote, but it was sitting on my nightstand next to my bed. I tried to turn the volume back down, and even turned the stereo off, but it didn't respond to the remote, so I just got up and turned it off manually. It never happened again. I don't know if all the strange things that happened in that apartment were actually a result of me playing with the board, or if it was all just one big coincidence. But I know they did happen. On occasion, I still have dreams about that old apartment, and they are mostly bad ones that often include demons and evil spirits. My Christian coworker says that it's possible something is trying to bring me back there or follow me to where I am now. I haven't spoken to the new tenants, but I hope they are safe and well. I have played Ouija 2 times with friends since, both at different people's houses, and never had anything weird happen, even though we supposedly got a spirit once. I think one friend was just moving the planchette. It's been several years since the last time I played, and I'm not looking to play again, just in case the apartment haunting was caused by the board. My curiosity was satisfied, and I have a family of my own to think about now. My mother passed away at only age 58, but I have a son who seems to have some ghostly friends of his own, and I don't want to risk him getting hurt. So, this happened when I was 15. I'm 21 now, but this is still weird and kind of freaky. It was about 6 p.m., and I was going to play on my iPad. Draw, watch YouTube, like that kind of stuff. I was going to go plug my phone in. The dock that I use is all the way across the room. Sometimes my phone does this weird glitch where you have to turn it off yourself, and it won't fade off automatically like it's supposed to. This made me angry because I like my room to be pretty dark whenever I play it on my iPad. So I went across the room to turn it off. My iPad was off. When I returned to my bed, my iPad was on the YouTube home screen. This was scary to me because who turned on my iPad? Who input the password? And who clicked on the YouTube app? For a bit of background, I work as a groundskeeper at a golf course in Missouri. I am a 20-year-old male, and I've worked at the same course since I was 17. The job requires me to arrive to work very early in the morning to complete certain tasks before all the golfers arrive. Most days start just around the break of dawn at 5 a.m. At the morning in question, I had to mow greens. Our mowers are basically self-propelled lawn mowers with a bucket at the front that collects the grass clippings. The buckets have to be periodically emptied if they become full, since my bosses don't like workers dumping the clippings on the course because it is an eyesore. I always dump the clippings in the woods. Now that I finally have most of the little details out of the way, I can explain what happened. I was on my way to mow one of the greens. I remember it being hole 17, because that is the hole next to the large wooded area. I got ready to prep the green, which means just removing the flag from the hole, and moving any sticks off the grass, so they don't mess up the blades on the mower. When I turned the mower off, I could faintly hear a limb snap in the woods nearby, and some leaves rustling, but it had stopped momentarily after I turned the engine off. I thought absolutely nothing of it at the time. I just finished prepping the hole and started mowing. About halfway through the hole, I had to empty the clippings from the bucket. I hauled it over towards the edge of the woods and dumped it out of sight. But when I looked up, something stood out in the faint light of the early morning. No more than 30 feet away was a person just standing kinda hunched over and looking at me. He looked like a very dirty 50 or 60-year-old homeless man. He was only wearing a t-shirt underwear and shoes. His hair and beard were gray and unkempt. Any normal-looking person lurking in the woods of a private golf course at dawn is creepy enough, but this guy made the situation absolutely horrifying. He just stood there for a few seconds, before he just starts walking away as if nothing happened, but breaks off into a full-blown sprint just moments later. What the serious fuck did I just witness? I thought to myself. I was taken aback, but I just stood there for a few seconds, listening, as I heard him run deeper into the woods before I actually processed what had just happened, before I too broke out into a sprint, except back to the course and away from the woods. The whole time span between me looking up and seeing him to him disappearing into the woods only lasted about 10 to 15 seconds. But it was enough for me to nope out of there very quickly. I called my boss, Lance, and told him there was someone, possibly on drugs or mentally unstable, lurking around the woods. I was in almost a surreal state. Had I really just seen that? I felt like I had just had a near-death experience, even though the man showed no signs of aggression. It was just so bizarre and difficult for me to tell myself I had actually witnessed it. A few minutes later, my boss came by with another 2 supervisors to look around. Long story short, they returned 5 minutes later after half-assedly searching the edge of the woods and found nothing. So I carried on with my work, except this time I kept looking over my shoulder. Some of you may be thinking, there's no way in hell I go back to work after that. But I have this weird trait, where I tend to just go with things, even if it's against my better nature. I guess I'm just very passive and I don't like complicating things. When it came time to dump clippings again, I just decided to run to the edge of the woods, dump the clippings and run back. But as soon as I started dumping the clippings, I could hear someone running very quickly towards me. I didn't see him. I didn't have to. I just knew I had to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. I'm a pretty fast guy, so I made it back to the hole rather quickly. I spun around and did not see the man pursuing me. Instead, I saw the man crouched down at the very edge of the tree line. I grabbed my phone and started to dial my boss again, but the second I looked down to call him, the man had already darted back into the woods. My boss ended up calling the cops, and they searched the woods but only found some garbage and an old makeshift tent made from a tarp. The man was long gone. The rest of the course was searched, but the only signs of him were in the one area where the tent and trash were found. I still work on the same golf course, but I'm always a bit on edge whenever I'm mowing that particular part of the course. But thankfully, my boss Lance is kind enough to let me dump the clippings on the course, rather than having to make the trip towards the woods, where I had the scariest encounter of my life. If my boss wasn't so kind, I likely would have left. I'm glad I never left though, because I haven't had any other run-ins with the man after that. I hope he's gone for good, and isn't harassing anyone else, wherever he may be. Clowns. Forgive me if my story is not long. This is my first posting. I was 10 years old at the time. I was walking home from school. I was coming towards my alley, and I saw at the very end was a white van. 3 clowns came out and picked up a cat and took turns stabbing it. One looked at me and grinned and made a "come here" motion. I ran, jumped over the gate. I scratched my leg on the gate and ran in my house, and I looked out the window. I saw them driving away slowly. and I never saw them again. So, creepy clown that likes to abuse cats, let's not meet. Hey all, Killer Orange Cat here. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please consider hitting the button below, or wait for the button of Ichigo that will appear at the end of this closing. Leave me a comment to let me know what you thought of the video, and consider sharing it with someone you think might enjoy it. You can always follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter. If you have a story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please email it to the address included in the description. Just please know that the one requirement I have is that the story is original and has not appeared on any other channel. In the meantime, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.